Today, we will be looking at the hedgehogs. These cute mammals are known for their spiny appearance and curling into a ball when threatened. I will have a document linked in the description with the copyright information for all images used, along with the research papers that I found useful. When I sat down to start work on this video, I intended to cover all species of hedgehog. I live in a country with only one species of hedgehog, and it is considered an invasive pest. As a result, I assumed that there were probably not many species worldwide. It turns out that I was wrong. There are a total of 18 species of hedgehog, divided over 5 genera. That is more than I really want to cover in a single video. So I have taken 2 closely related genera, and I will focus on those. Do let me know if you want a video on the remaining 3 genera. I am happy to do it if there is interest. Hedgehogs are in the order Eulipotyphla, which contains 4 living families of small insectivores. The animals in here used to be included with some of the African insectivores like Atelerix, but, like with many phylogenetic trees, genetics has proven that this is incorrect, and so the different groups were separated. The different families in this order are believed to have split from each other a long time ago, longer than in most mammals. The first family is Selenodontidae, containing the 2 species of Selenodons. These are one of the few venomous mammals, and are thought to have separated from the other families in this order about 72 to 74 million years ago. The next family is the moles and Talpidae. These are highly adapted for a completely fossorial lifestyle, with strong claws for digging, bad eyesight, and a strong sense of touch. Next, and the one most closely related to hedgehogs, is the shrews and Erinaceidae. Shrews are known for their extremely high metabolism, leading them to starve in a matter of hours if they don't get enough to eat. This finally brings us to the hedgehogs and moonrats, placed together in the family Erinaceidae. These are estimated to have diversified from shrews about 64 to 69 million years ago, showing us that the entire family diversified within a fairly short period of time. Erinaceidae has 2 main groups in it. The first is the hedgehogs from Eurasia and Africa, while the second is the gymnures or moonrats from Southeast Asia. Erinaceids typically have long snouts and short tails, but they are usually much larger than the shrews. They are omnivorous, but most of their diet consists of invertebrates, and especially insects and earthworms. However, they will also eat seeds, fruit, birds' eggs, and carrion, along with some small vertebrates. Erinaceids have changed little since the Eocene period, shortly after they diversified from the rest of their order. The largest known one was Atelerix, living in the Miocene. It is sometimes called the giant hedgehog, despite actually being a gymnure. It was the size of a large rabbit and possibly fed on vertebrates. As you can probably guess from the way I have been talking about them, Erinaceidae is comprised of 2 major subfamilies. Down the first one is the gymnures, also known as the moonrats or hairy hedgehogs. These have 5 genera with 14 species between them, but the vast majority of these species are in a single genus, Hylomes, with most of the other genera only having 1 or 2 species each. While their body plan is similar to the hedgehogs, they lack their most defining feature, the spines, and so tend to more often be confused for large rats or shrews. The other subfamily is, of course, the hedgehogs. Hedgehogs are covered in spines. These spines are hollow and made of keratin, the same substance as human nails and hair. Despite looking a little like a porcupine's quills, they are very different. They are not poisonous or barbed, and are not designed to detach from the hedgehog. They can fall out if the animal is diseased or stressed, but they are not typically shed unlike a porcupine's quills. Newborn hedgehogs are born blind and helpless. Their spines are covered in a protective membrane, presumably to protect the female giving birth. This membrane dries and shrinks after a few hours and falls off when they are cleaned. As they mature, these spines will fall out to be replaced by their adult spines, a process known as quilling. Quilling does seem to be an uncomfortable process, with captive hedgehogs often being reported as being unusually irritable throughout. Hedgehogs have some unusual behaviours, one of which is called anointing. This is when the hedgehog encounters new and/or a particularly strong smell, and it will lick or bite at the source. From this, they can create a frothing paste containing the scent in their mouth, which they will then lick onto their spines. This could be used for camouflage, to blend in with local scents, or it could be for defense to cause infection in animals poked by the spines. Their main form of defense is their spines. When threatened, most hedgehogs will curl into a ball, protecting their vulnerable face and belly. This can differ between the species, however, with those with fewer or smaller spines often preferring to flee or even attacking by ramming their spines into the threat. For these species, curling up into a ball is a last resort. Most hedgehogs are nocturnal, although not all species follow this trend. They sleep for large portions of the day in burrows underground or under rocks or bushes. All hedgehogs will enter a state of hibernation or torpor when temperatures drop or food becomes scarce. It is debated whether hedgehogs truly hibernate or if they experience torpor. The difference between the two is that torpor tends to be a short-term drop in activity levels, and it doesn't tend to happen as regularly as hibernation. Hibernation, by contrast, is not only longer term, it is also a voluntary state that animals prepare for. Torpor tends to be more involuntary, but naturally happens as a survival mechanism when conditions require it. Hedgehogs are susceptible to many diseases common in mammals, such as cancer, fatty liver disease, and pneumonia. However, they can also suffer from a disease unique to hedgehogs, known as balloon syndrome. Hedgehogs have rather baggy skin, which is what allows them to curl into a ball, but this means that there is space under the skin for gas to get trapped. This can happen from an infection, for example, and if it does, then the hedgehog literally inflates. There are even reports of hedgehogs reaching twice their normal size from balloon syndrome, but they are still very light for their size, since most of it is just trapped gas. It is fortunately easy enough to treat, as a trained vet can carefully pierce the skin in several places, allowing the trapped gas to escape and deflating the hedgehog. If not treated, it is a very dangerous condition, as it is painful and stressful and leaves the hedgehog unable to drink or eat. All hedgehogs have a very high tolerance to poisons. They are one of the groups of mammals to have independently evolved immunity to some forms of snake venom. They have mutations in their nervous system that prevent neurotoxic snake venom from binding to it, and so prevents the venom from being effective. Large quantities could overcome this resistance, but it does make them a lot more tolerant. For this video, I will only be focusing on 2 of the genera here for the different species, but let's do a quick overview of the rest of them first. The first genus is Erinaceidae. This has 4 species found in Northern Africa, the Middle East, and Southern Asia. This includes the desert hedgehog, found throughout much of the Middle East. They are known for living in harsh desert environments and also having longer spines than most hedgehogs, so they can be difficult to capture. Next is Mesocaenis. It contains 5 species, the most recent of which was only described last year in 2023. They are all forest hedgehogs from Eastern Asia, mainly in China and Mongolia. Most of these species have been poorly studied, and so only have limited information available. The last genus that we will be looking at today is Hemiaceanis, or the long-eared hedgehogs. There are only 2 species of these, and they are found in Central and Southern Asia. They are some of the smallest hedgehogs in the Middle East, but are easily distinguished due to their pronounced ears. The next genus, and the first we will be looking at in detail, is Atelerix. This contains 4 species of hedgehog, all of which are only found in Africa. They have several features that allow them to be easily distinguished from other hedgehogs. The spines on the head are parted down the centre, they have no big toe on their hind feet, and all of them have a white band across their forehead. The first species we will be looking at is the 4-toed hedgehog, Atelerix albiventris. It is also sometimes known as the African pygmy hedgehog. They are found in a wide area of Central Africa from Gambia to Somalia. This range extends a little further south on the eastern coast, extending into Mozambique. They often prefer woodlands and savannas, actively avoiding dense forest or swamps. They can be found at elevations as high as 2,000 meters or 6,600 feet above sea level, although they are much more common in the lowlands. They like ambient temperatures between 24 to 30 degrees Celsius or 75 to 86 Fahrenheit. If it gets warmer than this, they will remain in their burrow in a state of estivation, while when it is colder they go into the hibernation or torpor state I described earlier. Estivation is similar to hibernation, but it is in summer instead of winter. 4-toed hedgehogs may do this for around 6 weeks in summer, but it is possible that this is not directly because of the heat. It may be due to the lack of food at that time. The main predators of 4-toed hedgehogs are Verreaux's eagle owl, jackals, and honey badgers. When they encounter a threat, they tense up all of the muscles in their back to make its spine stand erect. They will then curl up into a ball, but if the predator continues to harass them, it will become more aggressive, attempting to jab their spines into the threat. They can also make a shrill screaming sound when attacked. Like most hedgehogs, its diet is mostly comprised of invertebrates, including insects, grubs, snails, and spiders. Four-toed hedgehogs will also eat some plants and even small vertebrates. They also make good use of their venom tolerance, as they have been recorded eating scorpions and venomous snakes. Four-toed hedgehogs are the most common species kept as a pet. The rules and regulations around keeping hedgehogs vary widely depending on the country and, in the United States, depending on the state. Some have outright bans on all species, some ban specific species, some require licenses or permits, while others have no restrictions. Fortunately, due to large amounts of breeders in the USA and Canada, this species is rarely wild caught anymore. Interestingly, the domestication of hedgehogs actually goes back to the Romans, who kept them for meating their skins. They used their spine-covered skins to clean shawls, and so they were popular enough that the Roman Senate had to regulate the trade in hedgehog skins. In the wild, hedgehogs will travel large distances each night. This is an issue for captive specimens, as they cannot be provided with enough space to satisfy this need. To get around this, hedgehog enclosures must include a running wheel, although the wheel must be carefully chosen, as they are usually not built with hedgehogs in mind, and so a bad one can cause injuries. However, if the hedgehog is not given access to a running wheel, then they will show signs of severe depression, including sleeping too much, refusal to eat, repetitious behaviours, and even self-mutilation. They are considered least concern by the IUCN due to their large range and presumed large population. They are also found in several protected areas. In addition to this, while they are fairly common in the pet trade, most pets are sourced from breeders, and so this does not impact the wild populations. The North African hedgehog, Atelerix algirus, is the only one of the African hedgehogs found on other continents. Sometimes also known as the Algerian hedgehog, it is found in Algeria, Libya, Malta, Morocco, Tunisia, Spain, and the Canary Islands. It has been suggested that humans introduced it to Spain and the Canary Islands, but if so, there are no records for it being a deliberate introduction. It used to be found in France, but has since been extirpated from this area. It is the largest of the African hedgehogs, if still smaller than the European ones. It has long legs, making it a fast runner, and also has a notably long snout. Its spines are dark with a white band around them. It can be easily told apart from the other African hedgehogs by the lack of spines on the crown of its head. It can be found in a mixture of habitats, from the Spanish mountains to the Mediterranean coast, to conifer forests to woodlands with a mixture of trees. One environment it cannot live is the dry deserts around Morocco and Libya. Like other hedgehogs, they mostly eat insects and other invertebrates. While they eat a wide variety of species, they seem to prefer ants throughout much of the year. Interestingly, they have been observed changing their diet to favour moths and earthworms in autumn. The exact reason for this needs further research, but the obvious inference is that it is related to greater energy requirements needed for torpor or hibernation during winter. North African hedgehogs are considered least concerned due to their large range and lack of known threats. The next species in this genus is the Southern African hedgehog, Atelerix frontalis. As the common name suggests, they are only found in southern Africa, in countries like Angola, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. The bulk of their diet are ground-based invertebrates like beetles, termites, or slugs, but they are omnivores and so will eat small vertebrates, eggs, carrion, plant material, and fungi when they are available. They have even been known to eat cat or dog food, beef mince, or bread left out by humans. Like most hedgehogs, southern African hedgehogs enter a state of torpor when it gets cold. This is clearly torpor, as if there is a warm period during winter, they come out to forage for food before returning to their torpor when temperatures cool again. Southern African hedgehogs are solitary, only coming together to mate. The female then raises her offspring, known as hoglets, alone. A female gives birth to an average of 4 hoglets at a time, but this can range from 1 to 10. When they reach 4 to 6 weeks old, the hoglets start to go out to forage for food with their mother, and they are weaned by 5 weeks old. They become sexually mature at around 1 year old. In the wild, southern African hedgehogs only live to about 3 years, so this is actually a relatively long time to reach sexual maturity for such a short-lived animal. The IUCN lists the southern African hedgehog as least concern. As they seem to have adapted well to urbanization, there are no major threats to the species' ongoing survival. Humans can capture them for meat, for the pet trade, or for their spines, which are sometimes used in traditional medicines. Their main predator is the giant eagle owl, but honey badgers, cats and dogs will also eat them if they get the chance. The last in this genus is the Somali Hedgehog, Atelerix sclateri. Now, you might notice it has a dotted line in the phylogeny, and that is for a very good reason. When researching these videos, I'm not usually discouraged by finding barely any information on the web. I typically start with Google, and usually there is a Wikipedia article, maybe some blog posts, and a few other websites talking about it. That is great for basic information, but for some more accurate information, and especially for things that are rarely reported on, I turn to Google Scholar to find some research papers. For the Somali Hedgehog, Google told me it exists and it lives in Somalia, but not much else. That's okay, and honestly not that unusual for a less well-known animal. However, Google Scholar basically told me that it has not really been researched either. The only paper I found about it was from the 1980s. The few studies since then that referenced it either only listed in passing or specifically mention it as a species they will not be covering. That last category unfortunately applies to the study I used to create the phylogenies I am using in this video. In 2022, Zeng et al. Did a genetic analysis on museum specimens of different species of hedgehog. However, they could not get samples for 3 species, including, as you have probably guessed, the Somali hedgehog. However, they did include it as a guess, suggesting that it is closest related to the southern African hedgehog, so that is where I have placed it. Alright, so given the scarcity of information, what do we know about the Somali hedgehog? Well, it is endemic to Somalia. That's not really surprising, given the name, but it is something, I guess. It is believed to be the smallest living hedgehog, possibly due to the unfavourable dry climate of Somalia. They prefer the grasslands and savannas of this area, but some individuals have been found among sand dunes too. And to be honest, that was all I could really find about it, so let's move on. The last genus of hedgehogs is Erinaceus, containing the Eurasian hedgehogs. This genus has another 4 species to look at. The most well-known of these species is the European hedgehog, Erinaceus europaeus. It is also known as the common hedgehog, or occasionally as the Western European hedgehog, to differentiate it from the other European species. They are found from Spain and Portugal all the way east to parts of Slovakia and Poland. A separate population is found in Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia. They were also introduced into New Zealand, where they have become a major pest. It is the largest and heaviest known hedgehog, reaching weights in the wild up to 1.6 kilograms or 4 ounces, although in captivity ones as heavy as 2 kilograms or 6 ounces have been recorded, but this is not a healthy weight. They can get to 26 centimeters or 10 inches long, in particularly large males. As with other hedgehogs, they are nocturnal and forage mostly for invertebrates, but will also eat eggs, snakes, frogs and lizards. They do hibernate in the winter, but usually wake up at least once to move their nest. They can hibernate for up to 6 months of the year, especially in the colder climates in the north of their range. While they can live as long as 10 years in the wild, average life expectancy is only around 3 years. This large range makes sense when looking at the cause of death. European hedgehogs frequently starve to death during hibernation. Badgers, foxes, pine martens, Eurasian eagle owls and golden eagles are the main predators of hedgehogs. For many of these, it is unknown whether they attack hedgehogs or just feed on them when they become roadkill. Badgers are believed to be their main predator, however, and it has been observed that hedgehogs are rare or absent from areas where badgers are particularly common. Where they have been introduced, European hedgehogs have become a major pest. The main example of this is in New Zealand, but they have also been introduced onto some islands in the Outer Hebrides off the coast of Scotland. On these Scottish islands, they feed on the eggs of many of the ground-nesting birds. To protect these birds, pest eradication efforts began in 2003. This attempt sparked international outrage, with people protesting against the killing of the hedgehogs. This resulted in a legal injunction being put in place to stop the killing. As a result, the eradication efforts changed to capture the hedgehogs alive and then release them onto the mainland. In New Zealand, they are also a massive problem. They were introduced by the European settlers in the late 1800s to try and protect their crops from insects. Since it is the perfect environment for them, and they lack predators, hedgehogs spread throughout the islands. This had a devastating effect on the New Zealand fauna, with many native invertebrates, lizards and ground-nesting birds declining due to the impact of hedgehogs. For one example, this includes species like the Cromwell chafer beetle. This is a critically endangered flightless beetle that is known for being the only invertebrate in the world that has a nature reserve created solely for its protection. New Zealand's Department of Conservation regularly controls hedgehog populations by killing them, and provides instructions to households on ways to humanely trap and kill the hedgehogs. Unlike the Scottish example, this has not, as far as I could tell, created the outcry from the international community. A large part of this is likely due to New Zealand not only being outside Europe, but literally on the other side of the world, so returning the hedgehogs home is not an option. The Department of Conservation states on their website that hedgehogs are a great enough threat to New Zealand's native fauna that they will need to be completely eradicated, the same as New Zealand's other pests like possums, rats and stoats. European hedgehogs are listed by the IUCN as least concern. There is some concern for their survival on the British Isles, and it is believed that legislation protecting badgers has inadvertently affected the hedgehog populations. Outside of this, however, their population across the rest of Europe is stable. Hedgehogs have few predators, and their deaths as roadkill is not believed to be high enough to greatly impact them. European hedgehogs are generally doing well, as they have done well with urbanisation, and many people encourage them into their gardens since they feed on pest insects. Next is the Amur Hedgehog, Erinaceus amurensis. Interestingly, despite being found nowhere near Western Europe, it is believed to be most closely related to the European hedgehog. The Amur hedgehog, sometimes known as the Manchurian hedgehog, is found in eastern Russia, China, and the Korean peninsula. It has also been introduced into parts of Japan. It is a similar size to the European hedgehog, and is sometimes reported as even larger, varying from 16 to 29 centimeters or 6 to 11 inches long, and weighing up to 1 kilogram or 35 ounces. They are a much lighter color than European hedgehogs, and many of their spines are white, with the rest of their spines having a whitish yellow tip but a brown base. These combine to give the animal a light whitish brown, almost grey colour. This is another poorly known species. Little is known about their reproduction, although they are solitary for most of the year, only coming together during breeding season. They can have 1 or 2 litters during the summer, and each contain 4 to 6 young. They are omnivores, mostly eating insects and other invertebrates, but also preying on mice, frogs, and occasionally fruit. There are some disagreements between different sources, so it is hard to know whether these are due to regional variation, or if some of the information has been misunderstood or interpreted differently. For example, Chinese sources list the sable as a main predator, while Russian sources claim that sables don't attack hedgehogs. The IUCN lists the Amur hedgehog as least concern, due to its large range and lack of significant threats. It is reported as common throughout its range, so this does not seem to be in doubt. Next, we have the 2 species of white-breasted hedgehog. Starting with the northern one, Erinaceus roumanicus, it used to be considered a subspecies of the European hedgehog, and even when the white-breasted hedgehog was separated as its own species, the northern and southern ones were still combined. This means that the northern white-breasted hedgehog was not considered a full species until the 2000s. The split of the 2 lineages of the white-breasted hedgehogs is believed to be due to geographical isolation, as they are separated by the Caucasus Mountains. The northern white-breasted hedgehog has a large range in Eastern Europe and Western Asia. It can be found in Russia, Ukraine, Poland, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia. Its size seems to vary across its range. Those further north tend to be larger, while the southern ones are smaller. This could possibly be due to the energy requirements to survive hibernation over winter, which is of course more drastic the further north they are. It can successfully interbreed with the European hedgehog, and, although less studied, presumably with the southern breasted hedgehog as well. All 3 species do have range overlaps, although this is only a small zone with the northern and southern white-breasted hedgehogs. They are easy to identify from the European hedgehog due to the white breast for which they are named. Northern white-breasted hedgehogs are considered least concerned by the IUCN. They have a large range and are abundant. They have no known significant threats, so there are no concerns about their population. The fact that hedgehogs typically do well in urban environments also helps with this, with the IUCN noting that it is actually more common in artificial as opposed to natural habitats. That brings us to the last of the hedgehogs in this genus, the southern white-breasted hedgehog, Erinaceus concolor. They are found in Turkey, Iran, and Israel, but are otherwise very similar to their northern cousin. They are found in deciduous forests and woodland, but are also found in urban environments like gardens and parks. They eat the typical invertebrates like insects, slugs, snails, and worms. They are known to prey upon beetles, which are toxic to most animals, making use of that poison immunity I mentioned near the start of the video. They tend to hibernate from November to March. One difference to the European hedgehog is that the southern white-breasted hedgehog never digs a den. They will always, instead, build a grass nest in a secluded location. Like their relatives, they are least concerned as they are abundant throughout their range. While their range is much smaller than the European or northern white-breasted hedgehogs, it is still a large area. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hedgehogs are a fascinating group of animals. Well known for their spiny appearance, they are a common fixture in many city gardens and parks across Africa and Eurasia. Thank you for listening, and feel free to suggest another group of animals you want to see me cover in the comments.